Hey, what's going on, everybody? In this video, we're going to be doing a review of The Death of Caesar by Barry Strauss, and I almost got it in time for the Ides of March, but not quite. I'm about a week late. But I saw this book I had this book on my shelf on March 15th, and I was like, I probably should read it right about now. So I picked it up and I read it, and I'm really glad I did. I've never read Barry Strauss before, but he's got quite a few books to his name now, and I'm definitely going to check out a bunch of the other ones. So let's get started. I really enjoyed basically the whole context of this book. He covers a little bit before the death of Caesar, covers a lot of material surrounding the death of Caesar, and then he also covers just a little bit after the death of Caesar, namely until the traitors or the rebels are killed after the Battle of Pharsalus, or excuse me, Philippi. Did I say Pharsalus? Yeah, I did. Anyways. So I felt it was just the right amount of contextual material as well as epilogue type material. And some books just go way overboard on the background information or go way after, the event that they're basically trying to talk about. Like usual, I'm going to start with the bad things. Fortunately for this book, there's hardly anything. Just a nitpicky thing, he has notes, but they're not cited in the text itself. It's basically, if he has in the narrative, according to Nicholas of Damascus or according to Appian, he has that in the material, but then there's no citation in it. You just have to assume in the back, in the notes, that he has a more thorough note on what he's referring to, and it's just kind of weird because you don't actually know if there's a footnote there or not. You just sort of have to assume, which I don't like at all. And most of his notes are just where to find the primary source information. There's not much, there's almost no notes on secondary source material. But anyways, he does have a bibliography that's fairly in-depth, and he has some good comments on that, so he tries to make up for it there. But yeah, it's still just not having any in-text citations is just kind of weird, especially with the way he did it, because if you're just referring to where you got the quote from, you could just put that in in parentheses or brackets or whatever right in the text. So I don't know why he didn't do that, but that's just a nitpicky thing. And that's pretty much it I had for the death of Caesar for flaws. It was a tiny bit dry, but really not horrible. Especially, I think he's fortunate because he's covering, the assassination of Julius Caesar, which is just inherently an interesting topic. But let's go over the pros of this book. And like I said, there's a lot. Basically, like I said again, he has the perfect amount of background information and the perfect amount of epilogue type information, so it doesn't drag on and on before or after the event, the death of Caesar, the assassination of Caesar that the book is about. So I thought that was definitely great, but I learned a ton of new perspectives on this. Namely, the most important thing that I'm taking away from this book was how important Decimus was in the assassination plot of Caesar. And a lot of people are going to be like, who the heck is Decimus? And that's the point. I knew his name, but that was basically it. And I think he points out the major reason for this is a lot of people take their information of the assassination of Julius Caesar from Shakespeare's play, and Decimus basically has no part, and I think he's called Decius or something in the play. So that's why Decimus is kind of left in the shadow. But he was probably the linchpin of the whole operation. He was the one that literally led Caesar to Pompey's theater that day and convinced him, to go with him because he was the assassination, or the plotters were running out of time because Caesar was planning obviously to leave for his campaign in Parthia and that sort of thing. As the author puts it, Decimus was basically the head of the operation, and between him and Brutus and Cassius, he should belong definitely up there with those three, if not the most important of the conspirators. Also, after the assassination attempt, I definitely was refreshed and learned a lot more about Decimus's role in leading basically the war against Mark Antony on behalf of the Republic, and how good of a soldier in general he actually was. And if the Republic had just helped him out a little bit more, history could have been quite different if he had taken out Mark Antony before the whole second triumvirate period with Augustus and that sort of thing. So that was definitely interesting, and I'm really glad I read the book just for that. The author also does a really good job portraying how just up in the air the whole situation was in the city of Rome after Caesar was assassinated, because a lot of people tend to think either, everyone just hated the conspirators or everyone just agreed with the conspirators, but I mean, most people didn't even know really what to think. He also points out how basically the legionaries were probably the most important factor in deciding who or what faction was going to be able to do what, and they had to get them on their side in order to basically get anything done. One other thing that I took away from the book that I felt was really important was the author does a really good job explaining three different events that help basically cement Caesar's fate and having a conspiracy against him. And I've learned about each of these three things separately, but I never put them, I guess I just never connected the dots on how close they were to each other, and how in just a couple months, when you do all three of these things, that could definitely turn the tide against you. He has a section on these three things called the last three straws, I believe. And basically the situation is, the first one is Caesar insults the Senate basically by not standing in recognition of them, which came across really badly. He also attacked the tribune of the people, or the tribune of the plebs, which were probably the most important officials for the masses of the Roman people. And then also the whole incident at the Lupercalia festival where he, Mark Antony offers him the diadem and he refuses and all that. But all three of those things were only a couple months apart from each other. The author points out when he does all three of these things in succession, pretty close to each other, he basically distances himself from the Senate, basically the officials of the Roman Republic, as well as the people, and that is just not a good combination to have basically every single person in the Roman Republic against you. So anyways, I felt this was a really good book. If you're interested in Julius Caesar or the end of the Roman Republic, definitely give this book a look. And I'm going to give The Death of Caesar by Barry Strauss 4.5 out of 5 stars. And remember, read victoriously.